A retired teacher walked into her trusted neighborhood dental clinic for a routine cleaning and walked out with a treatment plan, demanding thousands of dollars for deep scaling, specialized mouthwashes, and multiple crown replacements. She had never experienced a cavity in her adult life, yet suddenly, her mouth was diagnosed as a catastrophic failure, requiring immediate, high-interest financing. The faces in the clinic were the same, and the sign above the door had not changed, but the invisible machinery dictating her care had been radically re-engineered. She was not experiencing a sudden, inexplicable decline in her oral health, but rather a meticulously designed corporate sales pitch disguised as medical necessity. Across the country, patients are sitting in familiar chairs, completely unaware that the drill is no longer guided solely by clinical judgment. They are being subjected to aggressive upselling tactics, pushed into taking out predatory healthcare credit cards, and diagnosed with severe conditions that independent specialists later deem entirely fictional. This transformation is the direct result of a quiet, multi-billion-dollar invasion by private equity firms into the local dental industry. For decades, the cornerstone of American dentistry was the independent solo practitioner, a model built on long-term community trust and personalized care. Today, Wall Street titans have recognized that the highly fragmented nature of these small, profitable businesses presents an incredibly lucrative opportunity for rapid consolidation and aggressive profit extraction. The primary mechanism for this corporate takeover is the creation of dental service organizations, commonly known as DSOs. These corporate entities act as a massive umbrella, quietly buying up hundreds of neighborhood clinics and centralizing their billing, marketing, and management operations. Heavyweight private equity firms like Welsh, Carson, Anderson, and Stowe recognized early on that by rolling up these independent practices into massive corporate networks, they could generate enormous returns for their investors at the direct expense of traditional patient care. To fund these aggressive acquisitions, private equity employs a highly aggressive financial strategy known as a leveraged buyout. The firm uses a very small amount of its own capital and borrows the rest, placing the massive debt burden directly onto the balance sheet of the newly acquired dental practice itself. To survive this crushing debt and generate the required profit margins, the local clinic must dramatically increase its daily revenue, a ruthless mandate that fundamentally alters the daily operations of the medical facility. The financial metric that absolutely rules these corporate clinics is EBITDA, which stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Corporate managers relentlessly track this number, treating the dental chair not as a site of medical intervention, but as a rigid revenue-generating asset that must be maximized every single hour of the day. The intense pressure to inflate this metric dictates everything from the specific brand of resin used for fillings to the exact number of minutes a hygienist is permitted to spend with a patient. For the dentists working inside these newly acquired corporate clinics, the loss of professional autonomy is immediate and profound. Many practitioners report arriving at work to find color-coded production boards hung in the break room, tracking their daily revenue generation against aggressively rising corporate quotas. If a highly trained doctor fails to meet these arbitrary financial targets, they face severe reprimands, sudden punitive shifts in their schedule, or outright termination, regardless of their actual clinical excellence or patient satisfaction ratings. One former associate dentist, speaking under the strict condition of anonymity, described a daily morning huddle where regional clinical managers openly instructed the medical staff to find at least one additional procedure for every single patient on the schedule. The primary objective was not to heal, but to produce, effectively turning highly trained medical professionals into commissioned salespeople. They were forced to peddle unnecessary fluoride treatments, expensive night guards, and cosmetic procedures just to keep their jobs secure. The severe consequences of this relentless financial pressure inevitably fall upon the vulnerable patient sitting under the bright clinical lights. Overtreatment has become a systemic, undeniable crisis within private equity-owned clinics, with patients frequently subjected to unnecessary root canals, premature extractions, and the aggressive drilling of perfectly healthy enamel. Every unnecessary procedure carries inherent severe medical risks, exposing individuals to potential life-threatening infections, chronic nerve pain, and irreversible damage to their natural teeth. You might logically wonder how non-medical corporate entities are legally permitted to dictate such intimate clinical care. Most states have strict laws prohibiting the corporate practice of medicine and dentistry, designed specifically to prevent unlicensed financial investors from interfering with a doctor's independent medical judgment. However, private equity firms have engineered a highly sophisticated, deeply cynical legal loophole to bypass these vital consumer protections entirely. The corporate networks claim they do not practice dentistry at all, but merely provide administrative and back-office support to a technically independent dentist. In reality, this separation is entirely superficial, a paper-thin legal fiction that successfully masks total corporate control over the medical facility. By controlling the clinic's operating budget, owning the diagnostic equipment, employing the dental assistants, and setting the daily patient schedule, the corporate entity effectively holds the practitioner hostage, dictating clinical outcomes through absolute financial dominance. The aggressive financial engineering does not stop at the initial buyout phase. Once a corporate network is established, private equity owners frequently execute a maneuver known as a dividend recapitalization. This strategy involves forcing the dental network to take on even more high-interest debt, not to buy new diagnostic equipment or improve patient care, but solely to pay a massive, immediate cash dividend directly to the private equity partners and their wealthy investors. The destructive echoes of this asset stripping follow the local clinic long after the massive payout is made to Wall Street. Saddled with artificially inflated debt, the neighborhood practice is forced to cut operational costs dramatically just to avoid bankruptcy default. Experienced, higher-paid hygienists are frequently replaced with cheaper, less experienced staff. Standard appointment times are slashed to a dangerous minimum, and the overall quality of dental materials is rapidly downgraded to the cheapest available market alternatives. The most harrowing, tragic consequences of this profit-driven model have surfaced in corporate clinics specifically targeting vulnerable populations, particularly children enrolled in state Medicaid programs. Investigative journalists and federal whistleblowers have uncovered corporate dental chains instituting strict daily quotas for highly invasive pediatric procedures. This has tragically led to terrified toddlers being strapped to papoose boards and subjected to dozens of entirely unnecessary baby root canals and stainless steel crowns in a single, agonizing sitting. These young children, often originating from low-income families with limited healthcare options, were ruthlessly exploited as captive revenue streams. They endured severe psychological trauma and immense physical pain simply to satisfy a corporate billing target set by executives hundreds of miles away. The resulting multi-million-dollar fraud settlements paid by these corporate entities to the government are routinely treated as mere operational costs of doing business, barely making a dent in the massive profits extracted from the public healthcare system. To continuously staff these high-volume, high-stress treatment mills, corporate chains deliberately target recent dental school graduates, burdened by crushing student loan debt that frequently exceeds $300,000, these young, desperate professionals are highly vulnerable to the aggressive recruitment tactics deployed by Wall Street. The massive signing bonuses and guaranteed initial salaries aggressively offered by the well-funded corporate network serve as a golden handcuff, locking them into a system they quickly realize compromises their ethical training. Once trapped inside the corporate machine, these young dentists find themselves profoundly isolated, completely lacking the traditional mentorship of experienced solo practitioners. They are trained in an environment where aggressive billing is completely normalized, deeply distorting their clinical compass before their medical careers have even truly begun. The traditional, respected path of opening an independent neighborhood practice is increasingly blocked, as individual dentists simply cannot compete with the massive purchasing power and aggressive marketing budgets of private equity giants. The ultimate goal for the private equity firm is never the long-term sustainability or community reputation of the dental practice. Their rigid business model dictates a highly profitable exit strategy within a strict 3 to 7 year window. They aim to artificially inflate the corporate network's overall valuation through aggressive regional expansion and ruthless cost-cutting, only to eventually sell the entire package network to an even larger private equity firm for a massive premium. This endless cycle of buying, stripping, and selling creates a dangerous game of financial hot potato, where each successive corporate owner must squeeze the local clinics even harder to justify their inflated purchase price. Firms like Welsh, Carson, Anderson, and Stowe helped establish this highly lucrative playbook decades ago, proving to the financial sector that local dentistry could be successfully commodified, cleanly packaged, and traded just like any other distressed corporate asset on Wall Street. Leading healthcare economists and industry researchers warn that this rapid, unchecked consolidation is fundamentally altering the basic economics of oral health in America. As private equity secures powerful regional monopolies by quietly buying up the vast majority of specialty practices in a given geographic area, they gain the unprecedented leverage needed to dictate favorable terms to insurance companies, ultimately driving up out-of-pocket costs for every single patient in the community. Rigorous academic studies analyzing millions of insurance claims data have consistently shown that clinics acquired by private equity see a sharp, immediate increase in the volume of highly profitable procedures billed per patient visit. The verified data clearly indicates a disturbing shift away from standard preventative care and heavily toward aggressive, highly invasive interventions, mathematically confirming that the corporate quotas are successfully overriding conservative patient-first medical judgment. Meanwhile, state dental boards and regulatory agencies remain woefully unequipped to police this massive corporate invasion. These traditional regulatory bodies were designed specifically to discipline individual dentists for specific acts of malpractice, not to investigate complex, multi-state corporate structures heavily shielded by thick layers of shell companies. When a patient is severely harmed by a corporate policy, the individual dentist may tragically lose their license, but the private equity executives who mandated the dangerous quotas face absolutely no professional consequences. The tragic erosion of the sacred patient-dentist relationship is perhaps the most profound, lasting casualty of this unchecked financial takeover. Medical trust is the absolute foundation of healthcare, built entirely on the belief that a doctor's recommendations are motivated solely by the patient's physical well-being. When a patient finally realizes their expensive treatment plan was actually generated by a corporate algorithm designed to maximize shareholder returns, that foundational trust is shattered, often leading them to cynically avoid necessary dental care altogether. We are currently witnessing the systematic, highly profitable dismantling of a vital American healthcare sector, rapidly replaced by a highly efficient, deeply impersonal machine engineered exclusively for wealth extraction. The trusted neighborhood dental clinic, once a reliable pillar of community health and preventative care, is being entirely hollowed out from the inside, its familiar, comforting facade now hiding a ruthless, uncompromising corporate engine. Until dedicated lawmakers and aggressive regulators finally close the glaring legal loopholes that allow unlicensed corporations to dictate intimate medical care, the private equity playbook will only continue to expand its reach. The quiet, growing crisis unfolding in our local dental chairs serves as a dark, stark warning about the broader financialization of American healthcare, where the relentless pursuit of extreme profit inevitably comes at the devastating expense of patient safety, professional integrity, and basic human compassion.